Is Dragons of Stormwreck Isle the best starter set for Dungeons & Dragons? Well, maybe. It really depends on who you are. If you're interested in Dungeons & Dragons and you've never played it before, and neither has anyone else that you'll be playing with, if you want to be the Dungeon Master for the first time, if you want to try the game out with a smaller commitment, if you're any of those things, this set might be the set for you. But if you're looking to create your own characters from scratch, if you have someone in your group or multiple people in your group with experience that you can lean on, if you're looking for the most entertaining adventure that's pre-written that you can possibly run, this probably isn't the best option for you. This is probably the simplest and most digestible the rules of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons have ever been written, and it's pretty digestible to take in those and the adventure. It's something that you can probably knock out in a couple of days depending on how much time you can set aside to read it, so that you're ready to get going in a shorter timeline than other pre-written adventures. Additionally, in the box set, they provide a link to some unlisted YouTube videos that give you additional direction and tips for being the Dungeon Master or the player, how combats work, what saving throws are, and other various things to help get you acclimated if you want a little bit of additional instruction. This is just supplemental material to help make it easier to reinforce, to hear it from a different perspective or in different language. The monsters that Wizards of the Coast has chosen to put in this adventure are really simple and straightforward. Also, by limiting the players to a max of level 3, there's less abilities floating around, less spells and things, and it makes it more manageable for new people to get into this. Now, the flip side of that is that you aren't getting the biggest tool set to use. You aren't getting the most interesting encounters with the most unusual stuff that could possibly happen. That's the trade-off here. Of course, if you continue with the hobby, you're gonna have to get used to improvising as the Dungeon Master, and you're gonna have to get used to more complicated abilities as a player. But this is a fine way to ease yourself in before going to that next step. Dragons of Stormwreck Isle is a much shorter adventure than the starter set that it's replacing on store shelves, The Lost Mines of Phandelver. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, hey, that's a ripoff, what are you doing? Well, what they've done by making it shorter is using some of that space to give more tips to the DM and other things that can just make it easier and simplistic for folks to get into this. It's not the place where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. In fact, if you want the most bang for your buck, the basic rule set is free as a PDF online, and on D&D Beyond, you can get The Lost Mines of Phandelver for free, the entire adventure. A lot of my first endeavors in Dungeons & Dragons, we fizzled out before we finished the campaign. People move, people graduate, people switch jobs, their hours get switched at work. All of these things come in where if you have an adventure that lasts 12 weeks or more, sometimes it's hard to finish these things or to get people to come again and again on a regular schedule. So I actually like that this is a way for people to dip their toes in the water and find out if they like it and actually finish an adventure with some kind of conclusion. There's fewer options and it's much more linear than a lot of other pre-written modules. Now, before I get too deep into talking about what's actually in the adventure, if you're a player, you don't want to spoil it for yourself. So this is the point of the video to probably tune out. The adventure starts off by dropping our pre-written characters that the players have chosen on Stormwreck Isle. It encourages them to introduce themselves to one another. They each have their own little quest that they're looking for there, but there's not really cohesive reason for them to work together. It's not my favorite thing to not have a strong hook. I wish that was a little bit better here. After that, they make their way towards the first town, but on the way, there's 3 zombies chasing after them. The zombies have a quirk where they will keep coming back with 1 HP. The town Dragon's Rest is really simple. We have 3 significant NPCs and then a handful of kobold NPCs that have a bunch of different things to spark up potential role-playing things and have fun interactions with. And that's nice that there's a bunch because as a DM, especially if you're new, you can sort of just latch on to the ones that you can do something with, and that's pretty much what the book suggests as well. There's also only 5 locations in this town, and most of them aren't that significant. A couple of them are just places where people sleep. So that makes this a really simple environment to run. And that's a lot of what's in Chapter 1. We have the town, the NPCs, the quest hooks that they're gonna give, and we have a couple of sort of encounters that we might get going to and from our other major quests. So Chapter 2 is the Seagrow Caves, and we have a botanist in Dragon's Rest that normally sort of trades mushrooms and then makes stuff with it with these myconids down in the Seagrow Caves, but they haven't been responsive, something's up there, so it's your job to go investigate. So in the Seagrow Caves, there is this sort of toxic energy that comes up. Normally it can flow right through out the top, but there is a crystal with a fire snake in it that is blocking this. The myconids don't know this because they avoid that room because they hate sunlight. Mostly there's some fighting here. There's just a few different battles. A lot of the enemies aren't that interesting. This is not one of the strongest chapters of the adventure. Now, chapter 3 is a little bit more interesting and overall a better quest than the last one. It was already hinted at the very beginning of this adventure with the zombies that there's a problem. The dead are being turned into zombies by this talisman that's hidden underneath the water of the wreck of the Compass Rose. And then at the very top of the wreck in the crow's nest, there are harpies that are luring ships to crash here, which is creating more dead bodies that are then getting zombified. So with this multi-tiered map, the crow's nest, the flying enemies, having to go underwater, I do think this is a more interesting encounter and a more interesting environment than the last chapter. So after we've done the chapter 2 and the chapter 3 quest and we return to Dragon's Rest, the village elder, Renara, pulls the party aside to this shrine to Bahamut and reveals that she is in fact a bronze dragon. This is sort of the big twist of the adventure here. Renara gives us the setup for our final quest. There was a bronze dragon wormling that has sort of had a disagreement with her and went off and disappeared to the Clifftop Observatory, where Renara had previously defeated a blue dragon and killed it up there, but its grandson is up there. We're not sure if this dragon has joined forces or what's going on, but we need to go find out. I think this quest for chapter 4 is probably the strongest part of the adventure. The environment is interesting to explore and it has a couple of different challenges about how you will traverse it. There is a sort of secret door, but if they don't find it, there are hints about how they might do it. And if they totally miss it, it doesn't dead end the adventure. Because if they go back to town without having rescued the bronze dragon, Renara will send you back and things will have moved. Sparkrender, the blue dragon wormling, who is our main antagonist, our sort of final boss here, will be back even if you fought him before, unless you outright killed him. And he'll be healed and you'll have to have another fight with him. It's not the craziest or most interesting, but I think there's some good, well-designed material here. Once they've either killed Sparkrender and chased him off and rescued the bronze dragon wormling, then they've finished the adventure. Overall, I think this box set does what it sets out to do very well. It's not trying to be the longest adventure. It's not trying to be the most interesting adventure that you've ever seen. It's trying to be affordable. It's trying to be approachable to get more people into the system with no prior experience, nobody that they know that can help them. So if that's you, then this is the box set for you. If you have experience, if you know people that are experienced, if you just want to jump into something that's harder and you're not daunted by it, then this probably isn't the box set for you. I hope that helps you figure out if this adventure is for you or if you should look at the Essentials Kit or the Lost Mines of Phandelver instead, or even another RPG system, because Dungeons & Dragons isn't the only RPG system out there, even if it's the most popular. Until then, keep rolling and have fun.